Welcome to Our Darlington, the podcast where we explore the heart and soul of Darlington through its local independent businesses and the people that make it special. I'm James Carver.
I'm Henry Carver, and we're here to shine a spotlight on our beloved town. Join us as we sit down with the passionate local people to delve into their stories and uncover the unique contributions they make to our community and to find out about the town where we live.
Get ready to be inspired by the people and stories that make Darlington truly special.
And he believed that he'd heard from God about running a food bank here in Darlington. And he was sort of sharing his vision for the food bank. And I was sat in the congregation and my heart was going like 10 to the dozen. Clientele, they were fantastic. You know, they had to queue outside in the wind, the rain, the snow, the ice. We've got people who are living in the cars, you know, so we try to meet their needs as well with tent, camping equipment, you know. So again, even then, for people like that, you can't just give them an ordinary food parcel. Who would think that food banks nowadays were for people who were working, you know, out there earning a living and that? And that's been quite an eye-opener over the years as well, you know, that we were getting people who were, you know, even we've had teachers in, we had people working in the NHS as well, you know, and you're like, how can this be?
Today we're honoured to have with us Caroline Todd, the Foodbank Manager at King's Church, Darlington. Caroline has overseen the growth of the food bank over many years, navigating rising demand, securing support from local businesses and community groups, and helping families facing food poverty remain resilient. For example, under her management, the food bank was distributing around 180 to 200 food bags every week. We'll talk to Caroline about her role, how the food bank fits into the wider Darlington community, and what challenges lie ahead tackling food poverty. A very warm welcome, Caroline.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here as well.
So tell us a little bit about your role and what the food bank is and what it does.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, to me, I've got the best job in the whole wide world. You know, to me, it was God-given. I never expected to be running a food bank at all. So it came as quite a shock. Basically, quite a few years ago, I moved to Darlington and I was invited on an Alpha course. I wasn't in a very good place. I had, through my previous relationship, which broke down. And basically, I just got invited onto this Alpha course where I was ill with fibromyalgia and depression and that, you know, and the Alpha course was just life transforming and that, you know, and it was just such a beautiful place to be.
What's an Alpha course? Sorry.
Yeah, so the Alpha course is just basically, it's a great ministry. It's learning about Christianity, about faith. And I kind of felt I had faith anyway, you know, I kind of believed in this God and Jesus that you hear about at school and that, you know. I tried to get out of it a couple of times, but this lovely lady kept coming and picking me up every week and that, you know, encouraged me to go on it because, I say, I wasn't in a very good place at all. You get people who go on it, they just basically don't believe whatsoever. They try to dispute Christianity and faith. You'll get some people who sit on the fence, a bit like me. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Do I believe? Then you get Christians who may just go on it, you know, because they've probably walked away from the faith. They want to dive a little bit more into it. So on the Alpha course, I basically ended up giving my life to Jesus, and God absolutely just totally healed me. It was just so incredible. So since then, I've been on such an amazing journey, you know, and since I moved to Darlington, it's been absolutely fantastic. So, and how I started off working in the food bank is I kind of, after Alpha, I wanted to be involved in King's Church. I wanted to make King's Church my family church. It was so welcoming, people were so lovely. And there was this sermon one day, and not a sermon really, but this guy who used to be in our congregation, and he believed that he'd heard from God about running a food bank here in Darlington. And he was sort of sharing his vision for the food bank. And I was sat in the congregation and my heart was going like 10 to the dozen, you know, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I really want to be part of this. You know, what on earth is going on? And that was like back in 2011 when I gave my life to Jesus. And then in 2012, they started the food bank in Darlington at King's Church. And it was brilliant. You know, we started off from scratch. I started off as a volunteer. We had the most unusualest bags at the time, you know, because we were just sort of reaching out to people and communities and businesses and supermarkets and that. And I think in our food parcels at the time, we had like, I always remember it particularly, we had like broad beans, mixed beans, kidney beans.
Very fibre intensive diet going on.
Yeah. And at one point we got these marathon bars, so for the young ones,
Snickers.
you know, the Snickers bars now,
yeah.
aren't there? And on these marathon, we had hundreds of these marathon bars, and we got them basically because they were 1 grammage short on the packaging. So, you know, amongst these very nutritional bag of food, you know, they got a bit of a treat with a bit of a chocolate as well, you know. And people used to be able to come to the food bank basically whenever they wanted. You know, they could come 2-3 times throughout the week and that, you know, but maybe not ideal because we're still getting the beans. You know, lots of different kind of mixed beans at the time, you know, until we sort of built our relationships with the supermarkets and other people as well out there, you know, it was quite fun. Quite challenging, but so rewarding as well. And then we had to put a bit of structure into the place, basically, you know, and because word was getting around about these marathon bars, maybe not about the beans, but probably about the marathon bars. So we put a bit of structure into it and that, you know, and sort of designated particular days that we were going to be open. Which worked. It was great. And then we were picking up more food supplies from different food waste charities and that as well. Yeah. So we were growing. The food was coming in as well, but so was our clientele as well. And then the gentleman who got the vision from God, he handed the reins over to his wife. So she ran it for a couple of years, I think, probably about 3 years. And then she left to become a teacher, and then I stepped into her shoes. And at the time I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. What am I doing? You know, I was sort of like assistant manager before that. But, you know, I was following her orders and doing, you know, my thing and that. So to me, I was like, just not, what can I say? I just thought I just wasn't good enough. You know what I mean? And not qualified enough, I think is the word I was looking for. You know, you have doubts.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've definitely, you know, but God grew me in it because I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? I can't even organise kids' birthday parties. I hated it. You know, I was like lastminute.com. And I was like, how am I going to do this? But I kept getting these, I can't, you know, like you get a light bulb moment at times and that, you know, and I kept getting these light bulb moments. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea, that, you know. So my life was continuing like that for quite a few months, you know, and, you know, having faith, I believe that was God telling me what to do, thank goodness as well, you know. So I might have struggled a little bit as well. So the food bank grew and grew. You know, to the point where we were able to take on staff as well, which was fantastic, you know, and we rely on volunteers as well, which we all say the priceless out there, you know. We couldn't run any of our charities and that, you know, without volunteers. They're just so amazing. And, you know, they're like family as well. You know, they're great. We laugh together, we cry together, you know, and we really get on a great unity together as well. So as we grew, I think we kind of, I think we grew really quite big. So we were giving out quite a lot of food parcels in the run up to COVID, particularly. You know, we got to where we're giving like 260, 280 food parcels every week, which you can imagine. It's a lot of food coming in. A lot of food going out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, we're picking up food donations like 7 days a week as well, you know, and even on a night time. So it was, you know, it wasn't a small feat.
And where do the donations come from? You mentioned supermarkets a couple of times so far. So you got local supermarkets there.
Most of the local supermarkets, you know, they've really come on board with the food banks. They're fantastic. Amazing. You know, and we get the food waste, but we also get the customers' grab bags from Morrison's as well, which is a fantastic idea that they came up with there. And then like businesses companies, churches, schools, colleges, nurseries, you know, it's just getting the word out there, isn't it? And putting your name on the map, you know, that we're a church, but we're a food bank, you know, and we're trying to meet the needs of the people in our community. But people are so giving. Yeah. It's fantastic, honestly. And the council, you know, through COVID, we got hit with COVID, didn't we? I hate mentioning COVID, but, you know, it was part of our journey as well. And when COVID come along, we were like, oh, my gosh, how on earth are we going to reach the people now that we can't invite them inside and that, you know, and that was challenging in itself, you know, and I know we're British, you know, we like queuing, don't we?
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're full of patience. But no, I mean, I say that jokingly, but our clientele, they were fantastic. You know, they had to queue outside in the wind, the rain, the snow, the ice, you know, and they were just amazing. They were so patient. They were. It was like they were on a journey as well. You know, people were searching for faith and God in it as well, because I think there was a fear complex to it as well, wasn't there? You know, and people didn't know what tomorrow was going to bring. And we were finding that people were really open and receptive to receive Jesus in their life as well, which was, to me, was just absolutely incredible and a great journey for them as well to be on, you know. So we got through that. You know, the council supported all the food banks with pallets and pallets of food, you know, to the extent where we outgrew our small room in the food bank, and we had to, you know, go and politely ask the elder of our church if we could have a bit more space. So he generously gave us part of another part of the church. And we got funding to build a big wall up in there as well, which was great. And we've got a whole new industrial-sized racking as well to hold all this food on. And it was great because as we were blessed, we were able to bless people that came to the food bank, but we could also bless the other food banks as well, you know, which was fantastic. Because we wanted to be seen as like a river, not a reservoir, holding on to food and that, you know, we wanted to share what we got in as well. And the public was so generous as well, you know, they were great. We weren't getting as much in because you can imagine the struggles of people going shopping, and obviously they weren't working, they were furloughed, you know, but, you know, the council more than made up for the lack that the public were bringing in as well. So, yeah, so we got through that period of COVID. But I think it sort of impacted us because we grew. We took on extra staff through COVID. We were able to open up another day because the council funded us for that as well. And with the food bank getting so big and our clientele getting so big, you know, we had to take on the extra staff, which was, I mean, it was great for the workload that we had, you know, because food doesn't just jump into a bag by itself. You know, we have the pickups to do, you know, every day, and then, you know, we have date sorting to do, stock rotation to go. And if you've probably never been in the food bank, but it is quite humongous, you know, it's
Are
quite
you up on
a
West
big...
Hill Road?
We are, yes. You should pop in one day,
Kids
Come and have a
go
nice...
swimming on the school, so I pass it and see the big gold sign there, so you can't miss it.
You can't miss it. We're not like a typical church building, are we? You know, I always say to people, just look for the big, long blue building. Used to be an old carpet warehouse, didn't it? The old NAFI years ago. But it's an incredible building as well, you know. And as I say, we just got... we just got that big that after COVID, I mean, well, during COVID, people were throwing money at us. You know, we got thousands of pounds, we got funding thrown at us and that, you know, so we were able to take on extra staff as well to help with the workload. But we just got to that stage where money wasn't coming in anymore, you know, so it became very, very challenging of how we were going to move forward and that, you know, but the ministry that we have, it's awesome. You know, and when I first started in there, I was like, because I came from a little village near the beautiful Saltburn by the sea, you know, a lovely little place. I love it. And I think I was a bit naive because, like, when I first came to work in the food bank, it was like, oh, I'd never met people who had addictions and, you know, and needs like that and challenging needs. And, you know, so to me, I was a little bit fearful of them. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do I say? What do I do? How do I react? And that, you know, but God, when you give your life to Jesus, God gives you like eyes of grace. And he gives you eyes to see them as he sees them. And he really opened my eyes and that, you know. And And the stories I've had with people, particularly people with addictions and particularly men, the breaks my heart sometimes because people can be so negative about people with addiction, be so negative about them. But God really broke my heart and overwhelmed me. And it was and the stories we had was people had, so they've been born into families, obviously, but that family relationship, parental relationship had broken down, and the children, when they were children, they'd been abused at a tender age, they'd been given drink at an early age, they'd been introduced to drugs, smoking weed, things like that, and I thought, yeah, sometimes we don't look at the bigger picture, do we? We just see a person with an addiction and, they should be doing something about it. But we don't look at that bigger picture that, there's somebody's children at the end of the day, and we want to treat them the way that we would like to be treated as well, So, yeah, it really opened my eyes to people who are using the food bank, in a really good, positive way as well, and I think it's just such an awesome privilege just to serve them and, and love on them as well. We get people coming in and they haven't seen anybody all week and they'll come into the food bank and it's a case of we really see you as family. I've not spoke to anybody all week and, I love coming to the food bank because we see you as family and, we're just a listening ear to them. Yeah. We will listen to them, we'll pray for them, we'll, if they want it, we'll meet whatever need that they want. We're not just about giving out a food parcel. We've tried to make that food parcel up in a nutritionally well-balanced way that we can, given the items that come in. So we
it's not all marathon bars then.
No, it isn't. No, sadly, I think they'd absolutely live on them. It's always have you got any sugar in there? Have you got any chocolates in there and sweeties and that? We all love a little treat, don't we, as well? But does
it include? Is it just food or is there sort of hygiene products as well?
Yeah, we get lots of hygiene products as well. So it's not just about food. So if anybody they might want toiletries of any description, and our main goal is to basically move people out of food poverty, but our main goal is also to meet their needs, whatever they want. It might be food, it might be toiletries, sanitary products, children's toothpaste, toothbrushes, soap powder, and we want to give a bit of hope, a bit of dignity back to the service provider as well by giving them things, just so that they can freshen themselves up, they can have clean clothing, on a daily basis as well. But I know people struggle with things like that. There's such a lot of people at the moment because there's a lack of affordable housing, there's a lack of housing in general, isn't there, as well? So we've got people who are living in tents, we've got people who are living in the cars, so we try to meet their needs as well with tent, camping equipment, so again, even then, for people like that, you can't just give them an ordinary food parcel. You've got to give them something that's easily available for them to eat, something that match their needs. They might not have any cooking facilities, so that's challenging in itself. It's you've got to even think you sometimes can't even put pot noodles or instant noodles in.
Yeah, you've got no way of sort of
that's
cooking
it for
them or
cooking.
getting hot water.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people they just don't have energy on, or they're already into the emergency as well. Everybody comes in, they've got a different story, they've got a different need, and we've seen seasons have changed throughout the years. When we first started up, there was lots of debts, lots of arrears, lots of deductions coming out of the benefits, and then they were impacted by having to pay the council tax and the bedroom tax, which I absolutely hate the bedroom tax because to me it's like such a Victorian tax, and people are stuck in property because they can't, we've got people in 2-3 bedroom properties who are single people having to pay 1 and 2 lots of bedroom tax through no fault of their own, just by something that's been introduced into the system. you know, and for them to move, it's a biggie because, you know, you need the funds up front, you know, you need your bond, don't you, and, you know, your rent up front, you need your references and stuff like that, you know, and it's really hard for people to move home. And they say there isn't the availability of housing as well, which is a real struggle for a lot of people. So, yeah, it's very, very hard. Then, like I say, it came back round to a choice between heating and eating. And that's where I feel that we're currently at the moment. You know, that we know the spikes in the cost of living as well. You know, food prices have gone up, energy prices keep soaring as well, you know, and there's so many people out there that they just really just don't have two pennies to rub together, you know, and it's very, very hard for them. You know, the Citizen Advice Bureau, they're brilliant. If you are struggling with heating and that, you know, you can go down, and if you're on a meter, they can put you emergency money onto your key meter, which is a great service. You know, I think you can go down about 3 times a year. Yeah. You know, so we always sort of try to say to people, try to keep it when you're really, really desperate, when it's coming in the winter months, the cold months and that as well. Yeah. You know, so you can imagine it's very, very difficult for people at the moment. Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about the facility that you've got. Is it once a week that you run these food banks, and what day is it on? And
yeah, so we've changed. So because we weren't getting a lot of money in this year, we had to lay all our staff off, which was absolutely heartbreaking. Before that, we were open 3 days a week, kind of 5 days all of the week for support workers as well, because their time's precious. You know, they were just turning up as and when they could, you know, when they're meeting their clients' needs as well. But following the redundancies in April, which was a bit of a shock, it was heartbreaking actually. Yeah, I can remember sort of being in the meeting and that with the elders of the church and just saying, look, you know, we're going to have to lay people off. And it was a really big emotional time, particularly for me, but also for the staff as well. So we had to lay 4 of the staff off and then had to transition to look at, right, how can we move the food bank forward, given that I'm the only staff member relying on a small handful of volunteers, because some of the volunteers' roles changed. So some of the volunteers were like, well, I can't really find a role to fit in for me anymore, so I'm not going to come back, you know, and I totally understood that, you know, but we are currently relying on volunteers now. We say that they make the world go around, aren't they? They are precious and priceless to us. So we had to alter the whole structure of the food bank and come up in ways to sort of reduce the footfall that came through. So I prayed about it, and I know that another church, Word of Life, went to referral only, and I was always like, I'm not doing referral. I don't want to ever go down that route whatsoever. You know, we wanted to always have that open door policy where if you found yourselves in food poverty, which we know can happen overnight, your circumstances can change overnight. You might have a relationship breakdown, you know, and you're the sole provider of that household as well. So, yeah, I never wanted to go down that route, but I did pray about it, and I really felt that that was the route for us to go down. So we had to make it as easy and as accessible as we possibly could. I didn't want to sort of put a wall up where people had to jump through hoops to get this referral. So we approached quite a lot of different charities and organisations in Darlington town centre and emailed them all and just said, look, can we, you know, explain our current situation that we're in? You know, we have to reduce the footfall that comes through. Can you help us in any way? You know, and they were so obliging. You know, we drew up this referral form, which just basically says your name, how many people are in the family unit, what benefits you're on, you know, have you got cooking facilities and that. And we drew that up, and we just emailed that out to lots of different organisations and charities, support services as well. And, you know, they were so obliging to be able to do that for us, you know, which was great. So that's the route we've tended to go down now. So we're open Mondays and Thursdays. We've extended the opening hours because we used to be open 3 days a week, but 1 till 3. And when we were open them days, some days it was like, oh my gosh, they've all come in on a coach. You know, the hall used to be full of bodies. It was fantastic though. It was buzzing, you know, the atmosphere was great. And people were able to talk with other people and socialise as well. You know, so it was a great meeting point for them. But I thought, I can't deal with that in 2 hours, you know, given the infrastructure what it is now as well, you know. So we thought, well, if we extend the opening hours for 2 days a week, 10 till 4, then, you know, if we get a coach load, which we haven't had, thank goodness, you know, we can deal with that over that period of time. So people, they tend to trickle in now, which is just great, and it works. You know, the referral forms are so easy to get the hands on. You know, even people with challenging lifestyles, I was really, really worried about them, people with addictions and that, because I was like, oh gosh, sometimes they forget sometimes what day it is, you know, they forget what you've asked them to do, you know, and it can be a constant battle to reaffirm with them what they need to do and that. But you know what, they were the first ones that came through our door, you know, holding this referral sheet up. Look, I've got my referral, you know, and it was like great for them, you know, and I was so happy as well. You know, and the thing we have noticed is that we've got lots and lots and lots and lots of single people using the food bank now. Before we had to change and we transitioned, we were getting lots of families. I mean, we'd give out sometimes 70 to 80 boxes of food to families every single month. But now we may be getting, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 a week. And I'm like, where's all these families gone? You know, so it's really opened my eyes up, you know, but I mean, the council are really good as well. You know, they put things in place for the school holidays. They give them food vouchers, you know, they can get free meals and that. You know, so I think that's really helped in Darlington in a big way, because people don't want to use food banks. I mean, once over food bank. So I can talk about the food bank forever, sorry. I'm not going on too long. But yeah, food banks were basically a place where you went, you didn't want to go, you know, you were ashamed to go, but there were for people who were homeless, there were people who weren't working, you know, people who were marginalised in society, you know, and you kind of think, who would think that food banks nowadays were for people who were working, you know, out there earning a living and that. And that's been quite an eye-opener over the years as well, you know, that we were getting people who were, you know, even we've had teachers in, we had people work in the NHS as well, you know, and you're like, how can this be? You know, something's wrong in the society that we live in, isn't it? Which is really sad as well. But yeah, it's, you know, every season brings a different, I don't know, kind of a change in the season as well, you know, from the infrastructure for the people who are using the food bank as well. So a lot of our people who come now, we find in single people, I think loneliness and isolation is such a biggie in our society nowadays. So a lot of people, we've been gathering information particularly for the council, for people who've got maybe a disability, they might have mental health. And although we gathered this information generally, I've never really looked at it. And it's really opened my eyes, because the vast majority of people who are using the food bank now, since we've transitioned, are people with mental health. It's a really big, high percentage. You know, to the world's eyes, they're unemployable. You know, they may never have worked. There's lots of severe anxiety, depression, PTSD, sadly, in our society and in our communities around us as well. And it's like, you know, we're a food bank. You know, we want to move people out of food poverty, but for people like that, I find it really difficult, because we'll sit down with the clients, we'll look at the bigger picture, you know, we register them and then say, look at the bigger picture, what's led them into food poverty. But we'll also look at, right, where can we signpost them to get help and the support that they so need, you know, and we can't lead them by the hand. It's very difficult. You know, some people get letters unopened because they've got no money. They can't deal with it mentally. They can't deal with it physically, opening the letter, because once they open it, they realise it becomes real to them. And I worked in the CAB for 7 years as an advisor, and, you know, I understand that the mentality of that, of doing that as well. We used to have a lot of people who used to come in with carrier bags full of unopened letters because they just couldn't deal with it mentally and physically as well. And it's hard, if you've got no money, then how am I going to pay my creditors? How am I going to?
Can't see a way out.
Absolutely, yeah. And there is no way out. Sometimes it's just such a big pit that's been dug before them that there is no way out sometimes, if they're not prepared to get that help and advice. But I'm saying not prepared, but that's more because of the mental health, which can stop them, dealing with circumstances and issues that surround them as well. So it's very, very hard for people out there.
If individuals wanted to volunteer, help out, or businesses wanted to donate, how do they get involved and try and help you out?
So King's Church, it has we each department has our own page on Facebook. We have had to change our Facebook page, so if anybody can't find us now, or they find our old Facebook page, which was King's Food Bank, we had a bit of a blip on there, which we weren't able to log in. So we're now actually King's Church Food Bank. So you can find us on Facebook. It has only just started up, so we've got a very small gathering, small following. So it is just very small at the moment, but that's where we're at now. So you can actually go onto the King's Church website and put in a request to volunteer as well. And if we have availability, we will get back in touch with people as well to do that. We also run a session called Taste and See as well. Okay. So we wanted to not just give out food parcels, because anybody can do that. I mean, we're one food bank in Darlington. There must be about another, I think I counted about another 8 more, because when we first opened up the food bank at King's Church, we wanted to grow other food banks in different areas of Darlington. So we approached other churches as well and said, look, we feel God's spoken to us. Can we open up a food bank to your church and let you run it? We used to train them up and we grew them and oversaw them as well. I think we grew about another 4 food banks in Darlington as well, which was great because people sometimes they don't want to go to the food bank, the local food bank, because they don't want their friends to know.
Yeah, bump into people.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea behind that for us was so that people wouldn't have to go from one end of Darlington to the other end of Darlington, carrying heavy bags, the elderly, the infirm, you've got your bags, you've got your kids under one arm, to make it easy accessible for them. But you do get the odd minority that just, they won't go because they're proud, I understand that as well. Yeah. So we grew these food banks as well. So there is other food banks that don't do referrals as well. They didn't want to go down that route, and they didn't need it to go down that route as well, which was good. So there's lots of diverse food banks as well out there, which are great.
Donation wise?
Donations. We're open Monday till Friday. 9 till 5. So you can drop donations to us in the King's Centre, or we have a donation point in Sainsbury's as well. You can get the grab bags from Morrison's. There's Lidl has a donation point for us, and the Aldi stores as well. Brilliant. So you can just drop off wherever you need. And every season, people will email us or ring us up, and it's like, right, what do you need this time? What are you really short of this month? And I say every season brings a different thing. So in the summer months, you want to bring a bit of dignity and respect back to the household, don't you? So, say deodorants, body washes, things like that. And we don't just give out food and toiletries, we give out pet food as well. We try to keep pets with families as well, because pets are just as precious to them, aren't they? They're like one of the family as well, and great company, rightly so as well. So we'll do pet food as well. So we network with the Dogs Trust, the Blue Cross as well, RSPCA. So we get lots of pet food. We were finding that clients were feeding the pet food. Their own food to the pets. So they were giving them the pasta, and the tuna and the hot dogs. And we know pets love our human food, but we know it's not ideal for them. It's not healthy for them. So we did build a network up with other people as well to be able to get pet food into the food bank as well. We do children's food, do nappies, as well, stuff like that. So we're kind of like the A&E of food banks, we take anything and everything. You know, and it works as well. So if we've got it, we will give it out as well. So, which is fantastic. Yeah. So I was talking about taste and see as well. So we do a free meal on a Wednesday as well. I get easily distracted, don't I? So we felt that we wanted to do something other than just giving out food parcels for people. So we've been running a thing called Taste and See since last January. Been running for about a year and a half now, nearly 2 years coming up, yeah. Where people who use the food bank, they can just come and get a hot meal for free as well. And it's a great time. They can socialise there, gather together as well, you know, and have a good chin wag, get a free cuppa and a biscuit as well, you know, while they're waiting for the lunch. So we have people who come in and cook for us, which is amazing. I always said I hate cooking so much. I can't stand cooking. You know, I've done it for donkey's years, you know. And so I used to always put a call out at the front of the church. Look, I really hate cooking. I really need somebody to cook.
Come on.
Nobody ever came along for quite a few months. And I was like, God, what are you doing? Like really taking me out of my comfort zone, you know. And he did teach me, you know, if you're cooking for 4, you can cook for 40. You know. So, you know, and I have grown in that, but I have handed the baton over now because we have got somebody who's come along, you know, which is fantastic for me. So that frees me up as well. So anybody can come along to taste and see. And what we do is, because we're a church, we have people who've walked the walk with Jesus. They will give a testimony of what he's done in their life, maybe an answer to prayer, maybe a godly coincidence, you know, a healing or something like that. You know, it could be anything under the sun, basically. So we'll get somebody to share like a 5-minute testimony of how God's moved them on in their life. And then we'll share like a 5-minute, a quick, sharp, but impactful testimony out of the Bible, like a bit of scripture, but that relates to today, kind of like what's going on in people's life, which is great, you know, and people absolutely love it. And I heard the most amazing testimony yesterday. Somebody had rung me up and she'd said that they'd heard, so she was sharing me this story that these 2 girls who'd come to taste and see, they had a life of addiction of drugs and that, and they'd come and heard this young girl share her testimony, who also had a life of drugs, but gave her life to Jesus, and then she'd become clean. And they'd gone home and they're like, prayed to God, and it was a case of, Lord, I don't want to take drugs anymore. I need your help to come off them. And they've been clean for 4 months. And it's like, even the people around them now, it's like they've told them we don't do drugs anymore and they're keeping away from them. And I'm like, you know, that's what it's all about, you know. And people who do have addictions and that, will tend to signpost them to We Are With You, Roots, it's called the Edge Centre now, you know, the Access team as well, just to try to move them on from that place that they're at as well. You know, you hear many stories about people who've had a life of drugs and then wanted to come off, but then they've gone on to alcohol. And most of them have said it's harder to come off alcohol than it is to come off drugs. You know, so they need that help, they need that support out there as well, you know. So we're not just a food bank, we're a listening bank as well, you know, and we try to direct people to wherever that we need, you know, wherever we think that they need to go. But I say we can't lead them by the hand. We hope and encourage them that they will go and find that help and support other than food as well.
And a fantastic resource for the town, and credit to you and your team. And
they're amazing. Yeah, we have an amazing team of volunteers. We've got amazing church as well, you know, that have given us this opportunity to reach out in our community as well. You know, we don't know what next year's going to look like. So I've got funding for a year from the council, so they supported me for a wage through the support fund that they have as well. So, which was great. So next year, we're in talks about next year, what next year's going to look like. We don't know, but every year we thought, right, are we still going to be here the following year and the following year, you know? And we thought food banks would be done and gone by 10 years, you know, when we opened the doors. But sadly, they just seem to be needed more
That's
more
the
than
hope
ever.
that there's no need for it, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. That will be our conclusion, that we've won the race. We've won and we've run the race as well. You know, that there will never be another food bank ever. But at the moment, sadly, that's just not the case, is it? But we really appreciate, you know, everything that everybody gives to us and does for us and comes alongside us as well. You know, we just can't thank them enough.
No, well, thank you for coming on today and telling us all about all the great work you do.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure and lovely meeting you both as well. Thank you so much for
Likewise.
inviting me.
Thank you
So much.